Hello again. Back to the Avatar vlogs. This is episode 7 and 8, the Winter Solstice, part 1, the Spirit World, and part 2, Avatar Roku. This is the first official two-parter episode of the series. Technically, the pilot was a two-parter, but it wasn't framed like that. It was just kind of framed as a 1 and 2 episode for the pilot. Just kind of as a side note, I started taking notes on this one because there was actually a lot to talk about with this episode, but I was taking them down really quickly, and sometimes when I take notes, I tend to write in cursive, and my printing is already quite terrible to begin with, my penmanship, and when I'm trying to do very fast cursive, yeah, I can barely read these, so I'm going to try and talk about all these points I want to talk about, because surprisingly, there's actually a lot to talk about in this episode, for me at least. This is kind of an interesting case for me, because with my memories of this show, and again, having not seen it for years, I always sort of know which episodes I think I'm going to like, and I kind of know are good, but once in a while when you do a rewatch, there's certain episodes where your opinion will change on them as you get older. Like some of them I think are just as good. There's some episodes which we'll get to later which get a little bit worse. This is one of the few where it not only got better, it got a lot better as I'm older. Like watching it now, this one is way better than I remembered, and I always thought it was a decent episode. To me, this is kind of, I know I say this a lot, like this is where the show does this, or this is where this does that, but this is kind of, to me, where I feel that the creators finally got to the point they really wanted to. The best thing I can compare this to is when J.R.R. Tolkien was writing Lord of the Rings. If you're kind of wondering why the first half of Fellowship of the Ring is maybe a little dry and it's kind of almost scatterbrained, it's because Tolkien himself admitted that when he was writing the book, he said he was basically making this up as he went, and it wasn't until Rivendell, when the way the characters figure out how they're going to progress, that's when he figured out how they were going to progress. And this show is kind of the same. Like, it's this and Tolkien, they're both taking this first bit of their story just as kind of to set things up, to feel how things are going, and it's been good, but you can tell it's just sort of getting a feel for things. This is the episode where I really think the show has truly begun to hit its stride. Like I said, the last episode is where things started getting good. This is where things, to me, this is kind of the Rivendell moment, where just everything from this point on, for better or for lesser, is what the show really wanted to do. Everything is set up, everything is good, and everything is really starting to get good as of these two episodes. Not only is the voice acting from everyone like getting really good, like I think, so little fun fact about voice acting sessions is sometimes with a show, sometimes like people record voices on their own. Very rarely in a TV show will you have actors work together in a group, and I think this is the case too, where they recorded all their lines separately. Excuse me, but when you do a voice acting session, at least now, I don't know if this was the case at the time, but you usually only do about 4 hours, because when you do voice acting, like your entire performance has to come from just your voice. You can't rely on your facial expressions or your inflections, to carry the performance. That's all done in animation. So you're really stressing your body a lot to get that voice out and really make it come to life. So at least now, maybe it was back then, I can't confirm. I usually do 4-hour voice sessions. So 8 episodes in, that's probably about 32 hours of acting, 8 separate sessions. And I don't know how often they brought the kids back to do it, but the voice acting is starting to get really good. Like the first few episodes, it was okay, but it was a little, you could kind of tell that the actors were a little unsure of where to go with their characters. But now it's getting really good with the voice acting. Like the voices are just blending perfectly with the characters. Like, it doesn't feel wrong. Everybody feels the perfect age, the perfect inflections, the perfect dynamic for their character. So it's starting to get really good. I will admit, I'm going to check my notes very quickly. So this is the first episode. Oh, where is it here? I think, one thing I like, so in terms of voice acting, the first part of this episode, part 1, this is the first time that D. Bradley Baker got a credit as a main cast member. D. Bradley Baker, he's He's kind of like the Frank Welker of Avatar, where Frank Welker and D. Bradley Baker, they're known in the industry. Like, they play humans, of course. Frank Welker played, like Scooby Doo and Fred, and basically had a part in every cartoon in the 1980s. But he was mostly known for playing animals, because he was one of those people who had a great talent to recreate animals. And in cartoons, it often sounds better when you have a person faking an animal than getting a real animal, because that's just kind of the nature of the medium. It's not live action, it's animation, so you can kind of suspend your disbelief a little bit. And a person going row, 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 doesn't sound like a real dog, but in a cartoon it fits. And D. Bradley Baker in the show Avatar, his primary job is to play Appa and Momo. So he does a lot of for like Momo, and the whoa for Appa. Very sorry for my shitty skills. But he does a few bit parts as people too. I don't know if he's done any yet. I know he does some later on, but I don't think he's done any yet. But it was nice that this was the first time he got credit as one of the main cast members, because he's been part of this since the very beginning, but he was always kind of put into sort of the guest list, which is funny because Mako, who plays Uncle Iroh, is still in the guest list, even though he has been a principal character more or less since the beginning. I don't know if that's a contract thing or what, but it's sort of weird he's put into the guest side. But on that note too, Dante Bosco, who plays Zuko, I think this is too the first episode, at least part 2 is, where he got credited as a principal member. I think that's wrong. I think he got credited previously, but this is the first time I noticed. That. So everyone's getting credit. Everyone's doing good stuff. Voice acting's great. Animation's great. What about the premise? Because I notice now we're a little ways in and I haven't actually talked about the plot. So in this 2-parter, the first episode begins with Team Avatar just, flying across the Earth Kingdom trying to get further north, and they come across a patch of forest that's been burned. It's like a scar across the land, as they describe it. And Aang is sad because it's not just because he let the forest is burned, but because it was done by the Fire Nation, and Aang feels, because he does have a personal responsibility as the Avatar to stop things like this from happening. It's not just protecting the world on a political level, it is protecting the world on a physical, environmental level. And this is the first episode that really is starting to address the importance and the role of the Avatar in the world. Like, it was talked about previously, but this was kind of the first time. Not only is it showing the importance of the Avatar, but Aang is really starting to realize he can't just put this off forever. It's fully starting to hit him what he has to do in order to become the Avatar. And it's a running theme we're going to find in this series, that Aang has had tremendous pressure put on him ever since the beginning. We'll get to this more in another episode. But he's a young kid. Like, he's actually younger than almost every other Avatar, as we'll find out. And he's had this tremendous pressure put on him to excel much quicker, simply because the desperation of the world, and he's needed much faster. And that's a running theme. It's kind of like Spider-Man in that way, where he's this guy, and you just, God bless you want Peter Parker to succeed and just have a normal life, but you also know deep down he can't have that. He has to rise above being a normal guy to really do what he knows is right, do what he knows he has to do, and go forth and do the right thing. So there's that. Back to the plot, I'm sorry. So they come across this patch of forest that was burned, but Aang gets a little hope because he's found acorns, and it turns out the forest is eventually going to regrow. An old man comes along and tells them that their village is being attacked by a spirit. Kind of the first time that the spirit world is being mentioned in the show, too. I like that. And that really the only person who's able to do anything is the Avatar. And this is important because the Winter Solstice is coming. And with a solstice, that means the line between the physical and the spiritual world is about to be blurred, and there's no telling what the spirit named Heibai is going to do. And he's already wreaked tons of havoc on this little village. So Aang tries and admittedly fails to stop Heibai from destroying the village, and in the process, Sokka is abducted into the spirit world. I'm terribly sorry. And Aang himself is also transported into the spirit world, where he's told by a dragon that he has to travel to this island where he's going to get into contact with the previous Avatar, Roku. More on that later. about something that's going to come in the future, and Aang has to know about this. So that's part one, is just trying to save this village and save Sokka from the spirit realm. And it's, again, it's done really well. Not only is the animation very good and the voice acting is great, the one bit of voice acting I really like is from this old man who, if I'm just going to, I don't remember the guy's name. He's an Asian actor. He's a bit of a bit part. Like you probably haven't known him in anything else. And actually, this was one of his very last roles that he did. He only did one other movie after this, which was called The People I Slept With. I don't think it's biographical. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's about him at all. And I love his voice. It actually kind of reminded me of Gandalf in the Rankin Bass like Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movie. It kind of sounded like that, to the point where I was almost convinced it was the same guy, but those movies came out like 20 years before Avatar did, and I kind of don't think he was alive anymore by this point. But there's a great voice, a lot of Lord of the Rings and Tolkien comparisons in this episode. I don't even really know why. They're just kind of there. Speaking of animation, one thing in this episode that actually really stuck out at me, and I forgot how good it was, is I forgot how good the Fire Nation architecture is in this show. Like, the architecture, both in the show and the other nations, is really good, and we're going to get some good examples. But Fire Nation architecture is just so striking, and it's such a simple, like, kind of design and color choice. It's mostly utilizing like black and kind of gunmetal gray and dark gray and oranges, yellows, and reds, the colors of fire. But and the designs are very kind of pagoda-esque. Like, everything they do is more or less inspired by a pagoda, because if you've seen a pagoda, they're naturally very kind of flame-like. Like, they draw upwards, they branch out. It's very flame-inspired. A lot of the Fire Nation is flame-inspired. A little cheap when you think about it, Fire Nation flame, but it does make sense they would think like this. Plus, pagodas are just really striking bits of architecture. They just look really cool. Like, it's such a simple shape, but it always looks really cool. And there's one shot in this episode, this part one episode, that was particularly striking. I actually forgot how good it was, and yeah, the animation in this episode is just really good in certain bits, and I like how it's giving us a lot of foreshadowing for what's to come. If you know the show, you know what's coming, but if you don't, it's starting to give you hints that something really big is on the horizon, and I forgot how good part one was. I will admit, I'm not. The resolution at the ending is a tiny bit oversimplified in my opinion, but then again, I don't know how else you would have really worked around the particular dilemma of this episode. Like, you have to calm a spirit. So I think the episode did it about as well as it could, but even then, whenever it happens, I'm always like, that I just don't quite get it. And of course, it ends with this line, which is, it's not like it's a fantastically deep line, but it always kind of got me as a kid. It's like, I have to talk to Roku, and I have to talk to him on the solstice. But the solstice is tomorrow. Yeah, and there's just one other thing. That island is in the Fire Nation. And that always got me as a kid. I thought that was a great way to end the episode. Something else I forgot to talk about this part one is there's a subplot going on where Iroh and Zuko are kind of taking a break. Iroh is in the hot springs, just, relaxing, just having a good time. But he's eventually captured by the Earth Kingdom, because it turns out that Iroh used to be a very famous, respected general who laid siege to a great Earth Kingdom city long ago. And not surprisingly, now that he's in enemy territory, he's a wanted man. And there's a second part, subplot of this first part episode that's Zuko tracking Iroh down, and it leads to a very brief but very good moment with Zuko where he's the only one who's tracking his uncle down, and he looks up and he sees Appa. I forgot I didn't put Appa right beside me. Appa is flying across the sky, and Zuko's like, the Avatar. But he also gives this look, and he realizes he has to go after his uncle who's been kidnapped, and that's such a brief and small moment, but it really carried a lot of weight with it, with kind of Zuko showing where his real priorities are. Even though the Avatar is important, he's going after his uncle first. So yeah, a great first part to this two-parter. I'm kind of looking at the time right now, and I'm realizing I'm gonna have to split this into two videos because otherwise we're gonna be here for a long time. So part one, good episode, way better than I even remember it. So with that said, I'll see you in the next one, and see you then.